You must have heard someone say, kids these days call everything toxic. Or, back in our day, we respected people instead of setting boundaries. And usually that sentence appears right after someone refuses overtime, ignores a late-night work message, asks for personal space, or says, I'm not comfortable with that. Suddenly, the room changes. Because what Gen Z calls a boundary, previous generations sometimes call disrespect. But here's the truth. This is not really about manners. It is about access. Access to your time, your energy, your emotions. And once you see the pattern, the conflict starts making sense. Here are the 5 uncomfortable reasons of this, and the last one might change your way of thinking forever. Reason 1. Previous generations learned that sacrifice equals love. Many older generations grew up with the idea that good people give more. Parents sacrifice, workers sacrifice, children obey. You stay. You tolerate, you endure. Love often looked like carrying things quietly, even when it hurt, even when it drained you. Gen Z entered a different conversation and started asking an uncomfortable question. What happens when sacrifice never ends? Because endless giving can slowly become disappearing. You answer everyone, help everyone, show up for everyone, and eventually realize you never showed up for yourself. So boundaries appeared, not as rebellion, as recovery. To some people, that looked selfish. To others, it looked necessary. Same action, different interpretation. Reason 2. Gen Z grew up with mental health language. Older generations had stress too. They just did not always call it stress. They had burnout, but called it responsibility. They had emotional overload, but called it life. Gen Z grew up around words like burnout, people-pleasing, emotional labor, trauma responses, attachment styles, regulation, and boundaries. Language changes behavior because once people can name something, they start questioning it. You stop saying, this is normal, and start asking, should this be normal? That is where many boundaries begin. Not with anger, with awareness. You notice the pattern first, then decide whether you want to keep living inside it. Reason 3. Work changed, so loyalty changed. Imagine staying in one job for 30 years. Same building, same routine, same desk. Loyalty meant staying. Today, the world looks different. Remote work exists. Career changes happen. Side income exists. Identity is less connected to one workplace. Gen Z watched layoffs, burnout, and people giving everything while still losing stability. So they learned something different. Loyalty without limits can become exploitation. That sounds harsh until you ask a simple question. If saying no to unpaid work feels disrespectful, who benefits from that silence? Boundaries at work often sound small. I can't stay late. I'm unavailable. I need rest. Short sentences, big reactions. Because older systems expected more access, while Gen Z reduced access. Reason 4. Privacy became personal territory. Older generations often lived with fewer emotional borders. Family knew everything. Relatives asked anything. Personal decisions became public discussions. Gen Z moved the line. Relationship questions? Maybe private. Career plans? Maybe private. Mental health? Sometimes shared, sometimes protected. And that surprises people because boundaries are invisible. You cannot see them. You only notice them when you hit them. Someone says, I don't want to talk about that. Silence. Awkward pause. Then labels appear. Disrespect. Attitude. Distance. But maybe it is none of those things. Maybe it is ownership. Ownership of time. Ownership of information. Ownership of self. Reason 5. Respect changed direction. This might be the biggest reason of all. Older systems often worked upward. Respect age, respect status, respect authority, respect position. Gen Z often uses another model. Respect goes both ways. You respect parents, parents respect privacy. You respect managers, managers respect limits. You respect elders, elders respect identity. Different rules, same word. That is why conversations feel confusing. Everyone says respect, but everyone means something different. One side hears obedience, the other hears mutual understanding. And both think they are protecting something valuable. The truth is, they are. Previous generations protected stability. Gen Z protects emotional space. One protects the group, the other protects the individual. You probably need both, because life without boundaries can empty people, but life with walls everywhere can isolate them. The goal was never endless sacrifice, and it was never endless separation either. The goal is balance, knowing when to stay, knowing when to step back, knowing when to give, knowing when to keep something for yourself. That is not disrespect. That is decision making. Maybe boundaries are not signs that people care less. Maybe they are signs that people finally learned where they end. Because you cannot protect yourself if you never know where you begin. And if this topic made you uncomfortable, good. That usually means you touched something real. You are not just repeating the rules anymore. You are examining them. That's the move.